But what do you think? Do you think that someone's going to be desperate enough to trade up to 2, and is that going to be enough to convince Riverboat Ron to bounce out of that 2 spot?
I think 80% chance the Redskins are just taking Chase Young at the 2 spot, and this is really going to be much ado about nothing. But I think that other 20% is really, really interesting because I've sat or stood rather and listened to Tua's entire press conference yesterday, and for weeks now I've had different scouts and coaches and just kind of people associated with the NFL tell me that, the NFL is going to go crazy for Tua and that it's almost about what he is off the field as much as he is on the field. And, if you look at his numbers from Bama, they're nuts. He in 3 years, he had 87 touchdowns versus 11 picks. I mean, that sort of accuracy he's completing 70% of his passes. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Getting to talk to him and just be there and watch him interact with people and get, 100 questions thrown at him. Plenty of them were weird.
He's a sharp kid. He really is.
You get why everybody's in love with him.
Yeah.
And being there and watching it all unfold, I absolutely think Miami or some other team that maybe we're not even thinking about yet is going to go up to make sure they get that kid. I just don't know that they'll have to go all the way to number 2. But if you want to guarantee that you're getting him, the only way to do it is to get to number 2. So I think the Skins are taking Chase Young most likely, but I'm not ruling out a trade because I think the organization knows that they lack playmakers at lots of positions. And so if they can stack up more picks, it would help them. And keep in mind, they don't have a second-round pick. And that's where a lot of these good young tight ends that folks are looking at, a lot of those guys kind of look like second-round picks. I think you can get receivers later in the draft, which helps the Redskins. But I think a lot of this is going to be about who wants Tua and how high do they feel they have to go. And so what Detroit is going to do will be really interesting. If there's the slightest inkling that Detroit will take Tua, puts the Redskins in an even better spot. But the fact that he was so confident about being fully cleared medically, and he's talking about being fully cleared medically in less than 2 weeks. March 9th is the date for his medical clearance. And then by the time his personal pro day comes around in early April, there's going to be full out Tua mania.
JP, could the Redskins make it believable to other teams that are trying to jockey up into that spot that they might have a legitimate interest in Tagovailoa? Because, look, Haskins has 1 year under his belt. Rivera didn't draft Haskins. Could they at least put out the smoke screen that, hey, we're not out of the Tua running, so you better come up to 2 to get him if you want him?
Certainly. I mean, they're going to meet with him. I would be really surprised if they didn't bring him to Ashburn for an official visit. I mean, those are kind of just the way things are done when you're in this kind of position and you're trying to exert the leverage required. Kyle Smith was the first guy yesterday to really openly say he's excited about Dwayne Haskins. And I thought that was important for Dwayne to have one of these officials come out and kind of give him a little bit of a pep talk. But, Doug Williams has transferred from the personnel side to the development side. But if you listen to Doug talk the last few public appearances he's made, it almost seems like Doug's whole job now is just to motivate Dwayne Haskins. I mean, that's what he's talking about all the time. And it seems like if there's one person that should be able to speak to Dwayne, it's Doug. I mean, he's a former quarterback. He won a Super Bowl. He knows what it takes. And there's a lot of time between now and late April for Dwayne to make his impression on Ron Rivera and this new coaching staff and Scott Turner. And, some of that will be like official time at the facility because with a new head coach, the Redskins are able to start their OTAs earlier than teams that have a returning head coach. So that's early April is when the official team workouts will begin. So Ron Rivera will get to see Dwayne. Now, it's not the same as training camp or in season, but it is a team setting. And Rivera's all about leadership and character. So he'll get to see what Dwayne brings to that front, and that could have an impact too. I mean, this thing could be evolving all the way up until draft week.
JP, I'm checking out your Twitter at JP Finlay NBCS from 19 hours ago. You have a picture of Kyle Smith at the podium. Talk about the accessibility of the new front office and the new power structure where, years past at the Combine, Bruce Allen's very cloak and dagger, secretive. He if he's available for the media, it's not, like at the podium. It's like at a hotel round table. Talk about how you're able to actually have more access to the decision makers with the Redskins.
Yeah, I mean, it seems silly and maybe overly simple, but just talking to the Redskins boss of personnel at the podium, at the Combine, was such for Redskins fans, it legitimately should be a breath of fresh air, because you described Bruce as cloak and dagger. I mean, that's how they operated, like in all facets. And it wasn't functional, or it certainly wasn't functional at a high level. And it didn't make sense. Every other team but the Patriots talks at the Combine and just goes through the normal protocol that the NFL asks them to do. And it's just, for the Redskins to act like a normal team is a really big step. And I know that might seem overly simplistic, but I think Skins fans should be encouraged by it. Kyle stepped up to the podium, made an opening statement, basically making it clear that he wasn't going to talk about Trent Williams and Quentin Dunbar. He said, any players that are under contract, we expect to report. And eventually we kind of asked him some Trent questions anyway, just because that's such a big story. But there was so much other stuff to discuss, especially because you're talking about a new personnel boss. That's a really big deal. And we needed to know, his background is in college scouting. So who's running the pro side of this? Who's running free agency and all these other things? It was a very, I think like a healthy day for the organization. And Ron Rivera is going to talk today. And Ron is a pro at this stuff. I think Ron will have a pretty big national media contingent today, just because he's the only coach talking in his time slot today. And, there's a lot of questions about his departure from Carolina and Cam Newton and Andy Reid winning the Super Bowl, all these other things that will probably get thrown at Ron. But I think talking to Kyle yesterday, so Kate, you'll appreciate this. I'm on the Capitals PR email list. I'm not really sure why, but I'm on it.
Okay.
And every time they make a move, like they just traded for Kovalchuk, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I get the email a couple hours later, Brian McClellan media availability, 3:00, whenever it is. Because the team makes a move, the GM makes himself available to answer questions about why they made that move. That's what normal, healthy, proactive organizations do. And that has never been the case in Washington. And I get the feeling now with Rivera and Kyle Smith that will kind of be what happens going forward.